All right, so I'll start over. So, hello, my name is Akia, and I am the CEO and founder of the Hustle Lab. It's really nice to have everyone who's here and present today. And if you're watching the replay, I'm so glad that you took the time to watch the replay. Now, the Hustle Lab started off as a marketing agency just to help businesses establish themselves online, and it has grown exponentially within our first year of business. And so, where we really focus on helping business owners use social media to grow as well as podcasts and blogs. And so one day I was at a pop up shop, actually for one of my other businesses that's where I really found my love for using social media marketing through my cosmetic business. I had grew that through social media throughout my days in college. And I was at this pop-up shop for my cosmetic business, and Zane was at the table next to me. We get to talking, we get to chatting, and we both realize we have this passion for helping the startup entrepreneur. So it only felt right to have this workshop be from startup to legal business. A lot of the information shared today will be from experiences that we've shared, things that we've talked about with our clients, things like that. So Zane has put together a beautiful presentation, but I won't talk long. I want Zane to have all the time he needs to let you know this valuable information. So I'm going to pass it to him to lead our workshop, and then we'll open up for a Q&A session at the end of the workshop so that you can ask Zane any questions to get some clarification for your own business.
Thanks, Akia, and thank you everyone for popping in today live, or if you're watching a replay, hello. It's a pleasure. I always love doing these workshops, and what I find from getting the opportunity to talk with new entrepreneurs, small business owners, startups, is that obviously I'm sharing very valuable information with you. But for me, this is also a valuable time for me to, talk with you, get some of your questions, figure out what some of the problems are that you're dealing with in your business. I'm an innovator, so I want to come up with ways to create new solutions that help you to be able to solve some of these problems that you're facing within your business, whether it means coming directly to and through me or building some sort of, tool that allows you to do that on your own. So I'm more than happy to be here. Obviously, any good lawyer would start off their presentation with a disclaimer. So I'm going to do just that. And I'm going to say the information that I'm providing is just that. It's information. Hopefully it's going to be relevant to all of you in terms of where you're at in your business and some of the decisions that you have to make. But ultimately, at the end of the day, every situation, every set of circumstances is different. And so if you feel like you get to a place where you're not sure what you should do, it's always best to talk with someone and get that one-on-one advice. Don't rely on what I'm giving you as saying that just because it works in most situations, that it's necessarily going to work in your situation. All right. So do your research, figure out what you feel comfortable with. And if you need to reach out, reach out. So without any further ado, I'll jump right into it. I think one of the things that I found out as a business owner myself, because when I went and started my own firm, I knew plenty about the law, but I really didn't know anything about running a business. And so 3.5 years later, when I look back on that entire experience of building my business and getting it to the place that it is now, and being on solid footing, I really think that the biggest challenge that we face as entrepreneurs, as we're getting started, as we're building a solid foundation on which we can grow a legacy, is that we don't know what we don't know. And that's scary, right? It's scary when you're going into something new and you're not quite sure if you're thinking through all of the different challenges, if you're thinking through or recognizing all of the different opportunities, and just making sure that you're putting yourself in a position to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, right? So that's where someone like myself, someone like Akia, that's where professionals come in to play, right? And to be able to come in and help your business. And I just want to introduce myself a little bit more fully. My name is Zane Johnson. I'm the founder and managing attorney of MZA Legal. And I really help put entrepreneurs at ease and be at peace with their business. So my goal is to help you understand what you need to do to protect your business, but also help you build a solid foundation for your business on which you can actually grow your business, right? And so it's not just about being able to make sure that you dodge any barriers or any obstacles that are in your way, but also that when opportunity comes and is knocking at the door, because opportunity will come knocking, that you're ready to answer the door when that moment comes. And so couple things about me, my law firm, obviously MZA Legal, and we are a virtual law firm, which means that we serve clients in the Philadelphia region. I'm licensed to practice in Pennsylvania. But I actually live in Maryland, which is a long story that maybe I'll get into. But it's a virtual law firm. And what I found is that it makes it very efficient and easy for folks to be able to do business from anywhere at any time. And so that's one of the benefits that I offer to my clients. Another thing that I think it's helpful to know about me, because I think it informs just the work that I do and the way I go about practicing my craft, is that I love to root for the underdog. And I thought that this was something that was true for everybody. Like, I thought everyone enjoyed an underdog story. Then I met my father-in-law. He's from North Jersey. He's a Yankees fan. So he loves teams that win. He loves players that win. He loves Tom Brady. He loves Tiger Woods. He loves the Patriots. Like, he loves to root for the winner. And so I don't know if it's because I'm from Philadelphia, we all had this like underdog, like sort of mentality, or what it is. But I always like to root for the underdog. I think that there's something about snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, winning at all costs when no one expects it. There's something about that makes the victory that much sweeter. And so, I think that informs the work that I do within my firm, because it really is all about, helping self-funded entrepreneurs to build solid businesses that really help us to build a legacy that others within our family, within our network, within our communities can eat off of and build their own things, along with us. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to get into some of the information that we have moving forward. So what is kind of like the main topic that we're going to be talking about? It's business entities, right? And I want to go over why it's important to have a business entity, how we choose the right entity. But after we've kind of laid that kind of groundwork of understanding, like, what is a business entity, what benefits are there to owning or forming a business entity? How do you actually go about forming the business entity, regardless of what state you're in or what state you're looking to form it? And then once you've created it, how do you go about protecting it? And so as we move forward, feel free, if you have any questions as we're going forward, to put them in the chat, depending on if it's something that we're going to kind of come to, as we go, or whatever the case may be. It might be something that I can address right away, but we'll also have a question and answer period at the end. So, I definitely want to make sure that I answer your questions as we go along, in addition to just kind of giving you the information that I prepared through the slides. Also, I'll state at the beginning, the slides aren't like super substantive in and of themselves. So definitely a good idea, if you have pen and paper, laptop, whatever the case may be, take your notes. Obviously, there'll be a recording afterwards as well. But in the moment, that the slides themselves aren't going to give you too much meat. So starting off, why should we form a business entity, right? You're a new entrepreneur, you've got a business idea, and you're thinking about getting started. Why would you form a business entity? And I think before we even get to that question, we need to know what a business entity is, right? And so there are kind of four main ways to start a business in terms of, from a legal perspective, how your business is classified. There are sole proprietorships, which is basically one business owner who's in business for themselves. And from a legal perspective, the business owner and the business itself are one and the same. There's a partnership, which is more than one business owners, and the partners of the business and the business are one and the same. And then there are LLCs and there are corporations. All right. So LLCs and corporations are business entities, which means that on the state level, Whether it is one person or whether it's multiple people who own the business, they have filed the correct paperwork to create an entity that's recognized as a whole separate legal entity, separate from the people who own it. All right, and it's important to really understand that a corporation and an LLC, they have what is sometimes referred to as legal personhood. All right, which basically means that from a legal perspective, they're completely separate, again, from the people who own it. And in the case of a corporation, the people who own the corporation are going to be shareholders. In the case of an LLC, the people who own the LLC are referred to as members. And so the benefits that comes with starting a business entity come from the fact that it's separate from the people who own it. And so number one, what that means is that the people who own the business are given some layer of personal liability protection from the debts and liabilities that belong to the business, right? And so the same way that the law wouldn't hold you responsible, generally speaking, for the actions of another person, the law is not going to hold you responsible for the debts and liabilities that belong to your business, right? And so that's where that layer of personal liability protection comes in, to where if your business, goes bankrupt or your business gets sued, the person who sues your business successfully won't be able to come after your personal assets, your home, your bank account, your car, whatever the case may be, in order to collect. Couple of things I want to point out about that is that your personal liability protection isn't absolute. All right. And so there are ways to lose that personal liability protection. The easiest way to do that is by commingling funds. So you want to make sure, and I'll mention this as we move forward, that you set up a separate bank account. If you do start an LLC or corporation, start a separate bank account for your business. And the other thing to understand is that personal liability protection will not protect you from your own negligence or your own misconduct, right? So if you commit a crime, obviously you're going to be personally liable for that. But if you're personally negligent, right? If you are driving a company van and you're texting at the same time and you hit someone, even though you were working or you were, in the course of, engaging in business, the fact that you have an LLC is not going to protect you from your own negligence. All right. So it's important to understand where some of those limits to your limit on liability actually begin and end. The other some of the other benefits of starting a business entity, it's also from a financial management standpoint, right? So being able to see the finances of the business separated from your finances personally helps you to be able to get a better view of what the business's health actually is and what the business's health looks like. And then last, but certainly not least, is that a business entity is an asset, right? And so when you own it, and it's so important from a financial standpoint, being a business owner, to understand what your assets are, because that's really where value is created, right? An asset is anything that either creates value or you have the ability to sell it for value, right? And so that is really where we're building a legacy that's allowing us to pass something down to our children, and that they can pass down to their children, is the fact that you have an asset. And if you don't have a business entity, but you're running a business, again, there's nothing separate there for you to kind of sell. And so if you were to, at the end of the day, and I think the best way to think about this is, when you look at a venture capitalist, right, who's looking to invest in a business, they think about the end at the beginning. And what I mean by that is, before they invest in a business, they're thinking about, what does this business look like long term? And what does it look like for me to receive a return on the investment after 10, 20, 30 years? Is the business going to go public? Is the business going to be bought by someone else? How much cash is the business going to generate that I'll be able to take in the form of dividends, right? And so it's the same thing with your business. You want to think about the end at the beginning, and starting a business entity helps you to build value in this separate entity that ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you decide to pass it on to your children, you can do that with a business entity, or you can sell it and then take the proceeds and pass it on or invest it or whatever the case may be. But having that separate entity helps you to build value in that business. So now that we understand why it's helpful to start a business entity, how do we choose the right type of business entity, right? So I mentioned there are basically kind of two main types of business entities. There are other types, but we're really just going to focus on corporations and LLCs for today. And so an LLC really kind of gives you the best of both worlds as a new entrepreneur. And it's one of the reasons why an LLC is such a popular form of business entity for new entrepreneurs, right? So LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. And with an LLC, you have choice of tax treatment, which means that the LLC can be treated as a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an S Corp, a C Corp, or even a nonprofit. All right. And so an LLC has a wide range of tax treatment options. And that comes from the fact that when you create an LLC on the state level and you go to register your EIN on the federal level, the IRS doesn't have a separate tax category for LLCs. All right. And so LLCs will be treated basically as anything other than just an LLC because there's no separate tax category for LLCs. So there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of choice of tax treatment, some ways that you can benefit on your tax bill every April or every quarter if you're paying quarterly. LLCs also give you management flexibility. And so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of choosing how the business is going to be run, how the business is going to be managed, which is especially important when you have business partners. With an LLC, you can also sell portions of the business in order to raise money, right? And so this is particularly helpful if you're trying to raise money, let's say from friends or family. You can give them a percentage interest in your business in exchange for them investing in the work that you're going to be doing. Some of the drawbacks of the LLC, I think number one, it's really easy to start an LLC, which is a good thing. But on the flip side of that, because it's so easy to start, sometimes people start an LLC without fully kind of thinking through what it looks like and also what it means to own that business and what the responsibilities and obligations are. And also, what some of the unintended consequences, right? For example, if I go out and I start an LLC with a business partner, me and my business partner each have 100% right to make decisions that bind the company, which means that my business partner could go out and get a loan in the name of the company without telling me. And if I never know that loan exists, and then 4 years later, someone comes out of the blue and says, you haven't been paying your loan. And I'm like, what loan? My business still owes on that loan, even though I personally wasn't the one who went out and got that loan. And I've actually met people who where that situation has happened, right? And so you want to make sure that you take the time to fully understand what an LLC is and also what you need to do to protect it, which we'll be talking a little bit about on the slides that are upcoming. With an LLC relative to a corporation, you do have fewer options for raising money. With an LLC, you can't issue shares on a public stock exchange. And so not being able to take your company public, at least in the traditional sense, somewhat limits your ability to raise capital, especially if you're looking to raise money from venture capitalists, third-party investors. A lot of times they want to invest in a company that is structured as a corporation. And so at the end of the day, an LLC tends to be best for entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business for the long term and who aren't necessarily concerned, at least at the moment, with raising capital from venture capitalists and third-party investors. And so the other form of entity, right, that we want to talk about are corporations. And corporations also have choice of tax treatment. They can either be treated as S Corps or C Corps. And so they have less tax flexibility than LLCs. But with a corporation, again, you have the ability to offer shares on a public stock exchange. And so that really makes a corporation the best entity for raising money because it's going to be the most enticing to investors, venture capitalists, if you're trying to raise that sort of money as a traditional startup, right? The drawbacks of a corporation are that it is the most complex form of business entity, right? And so LLCs have some complexities of their own. It tends to be something that anyone can manage as long as they've done the research and the homework and talked with someone who can, kind of help them see where they might want to pay close attention to. A corporation is one of those business entities where typically I won't recommend someone form their business as a corporation unless they have someone on their team or they have familiarity themselves with running a corporate structure, because corporation is required to follow a lot more formalities, right? So having meetings, logging minutes. Has to be a board of directors, right? And so the board of directors has the right to control the business. The shareholders have the right to profit, right? And so if decisions aren't being made according to these corporate formalities and rules, you risk losing that personal liability protection that you have as a business owner. And so that also goes into having some limited management flexibility, right? Because the board of directors is required to have control, the shareholders have to get sort of creative in terms of how they maintain control over the business, if that's something that's important for them. And so again, a corporation tends to be best for entrepreneurs who have some experience managing that corporate structure, and especially are interested in raising venture capital. So now that we know, why it's important to start a business entity, and we know what types of business entities we're looking at, and thinking about potentially starting, what does the process actually look like to starting one of these business entities? And so it really, the process kind of breaks down into 4 simple steps, right? So there's filing the paperwork with the state in which you want to form the business entity, right? And so in the case of a corporation, those are going to be articles of incorporation. In the case of an LLC, in Pennsylvania, it's called a certificate of organization. In New Jersey, it's articles of organization, I believe. But you're basically filing paperwork with the state. That step is pretty simple. But different states have different requirements in terms of what is required to be within that paperwork, and also what some of the things are that you need, right? And so in every state, you're required to have what's called a registered agent. All right. And a registered agent is going to be a place where process can be served on your business in case your business gets sued, right? And so you might not actually be physically in the state in which you're doing business, but at the end of the day, you have to have someone there who can accept process, who can accept legal papers in case your business gets sued. And different states have different requirements about what that registered agent is required to be, whether that registered agent can be the address of your business. Some states it has to be an attorney. Some states it has to be, if it's not going to be the location of your business or the location of your home, it has to be a registered office provider. That's the case in Pennsylvania. So there are some things that kind of go into it, but generally speaking, filing the paperwork with the state is relatively simple. After you've created the entity at the state level, you're going to apply for an employer identification number, and that is required for basically every business except for a sole proprietorship that doesn't have employees. All right, and so you're required to have an EIN number, and it's basically like a social security number for your business. It's how the government identifies your businesses, particularly for your business, particularly for tax purposes, right? And so after you filed the paperwork with the state and you've applied for an EIN, next is drafting your bylaws or your operating agreement, which can be simple if you are just a single business owner, in which case your operating agreement or your bylaws don't have to be too complex, right? Because you're the only person who's making decisions within your business. But if you have business partners, it's very important to look at the bylaws and the operating agreement as basically a contract between all of you, laying out how you're going to make decisions about the business, how the business is going to be run, how it's going to be managed. And it's very important to put the time into putting those agreements or putting those documents together in a thoughtful way, because it's going to be really difficult if down the line something happens that you all can't agree on. It's going to be really difficult to figure out in that moment how you resolve it in a fair way and in a way that everybody can, be okay with, when everybody's got different interests, right? And everybody's looking for a different outcome. It's a lot easier to sort of figure those sorts of things out at the beginning, figuring things out like, who's responsible for doing what, who's responsible for contributing money to the business, who is responsible for, what happens if someone passes away, what happens if someone is unable to or isn't fulfilling their duties and obligations to the business, right? So all of these are things that you want to have in mind and you want to address before you start doing business, especially if you have business partners. Last but not least is opening a business bank account. And this is a step that's often overlooked. After you've created the LLC, after you've created the corporation, you want to open a separate business bank account because that's actually going to help you protect your personal liability protection, right? So we talked about your personal liability protection comes from the fact that you and your business are separate entities. And so from a legal perspective, you are required to treat assets that belong to the business as such, right? They belong to the business, they don't belong to you personally. And if you ever get in a situation where, let's say, you are taking funds into the business as an LLC and you're putting it into a personal account that you use to go on vacation and pay the phone bill and pay the internet, and my daughter needs a new pair of shoes, my son needs a new this. At the end of the day, if your business runs into any trouble, what could happen is a judge could look at that and say, well, you weren't recognizing the legal difference between you as the business owner and the business itself. And so we're not going to allow you to kind of claim that there is this separation between the two. And it's called piercing the corporate veil. And what the judge will do is say, we're going to allow this person to collect from your personal assets because you are treating the business's assets as if they belong to you personally. So we're going to do the same thing. And so again, it's a very important step. Opening a business bank account is also important from other perspectives as well, right? Being able to manage the money within your business and understand, how money is coming in and out of your business. But also a lot of times that bank that you open your business account with is going to be the first institution to offer you credit for your business, right? And so that's another thing to keep in mind, is that when you open that business bank account, you're creating a relationship that ultimately can help you with growing your business. And so it's a very important step that a lot of times gets missed. Last but not least, so we've set up our business entity. How do we make sure that we're protecting it? What steps do we need to be taking? For me, I tend to think about protecting yourself and your business in 5 different ways. Basically, there are 5 ways to protect yourself and your business from the risks that come with doing business. And, I'll be, obviously upfront about it. And I'm sure we all know this as business owners, as entrepreneurs, there's always a risk to doing business. It's just part of what we've signed up for. There's no way to avoid it completely. But we want to think strategically about how we limit risk and how we minimize it so that if something does happen, if something does pop up, it doesn't necessarily have to be the end of our business. And it also doesn't have to have this sort of negative impact on our life that really is life altering, right? And so in addition to creating a business entity, which is going to give you that personal liability protection, you also want to look at insurance, right? So insurance is going to be the best way to protect yourself and your business from risk. And that includes, business insurance. It includes insurance on vehicles if your business owns vehicles, insurance on the building that your business might be located at. But it also includes life insurance, right? So, for example, I talked about if you have business partners, and if you have business partners and a business partner passes away, what do you do in that situation? Well, typically that business partner's ownership would pass to whoever it is that their estate passes on to, right? But you might not want to work with that person's spouse or that person's children or whoever their share in the business would pass to. And one of the key ways that business owners kind of handle that situation is by having what's called a buy-sell agreement that's funded by life insurance. So basically, the business purchases a life insurance policy on each of the business owners. It might be a full-term policy that builds value. It might be a full life insurance policy that builds value. It might be a term life insurance policy that goes to a certain age. But either way, it's there in case one of the business owners should pass away. The funds from that life insurance will be transferred to the business, and then they can buy out that person's estate with the funds of that life insurance. So there's no disruption to the business, or at least minimal disruption to the business by that person actually passing away. Another way to protect your business is through contracts. And I'm a huge fan of contracts. To me, I think that there's something special about the fact that through a contract, you can create your own law, which is basically what you're doing, right? You're coming up with an agreement, you're putting it in writing, you're saying these are the obligations that we're agreeing to follow. And if one person doesn't follow it, there are legal consequences to that, right? Or you can hold the other party can hold them legally responsible. And so contracts are so important. Not only do they kind of help you to get on the same page and really memorialize what your agreement is, but contracts also allow you to actually shift risk, right? And so if let's say I am let's say for example, I'm Nickelodeon, and I have a business that sells toys that wants to use my characters in creating and manufacturing their toys, right? But I don't want to be held responsible for a child choking on a toy, or a child getting up on a toy that has wheels on it and trying to stand on it and falling and, getting injured. So what I can do within that contract is I can add what's called an indemnity provision, right? Which basically says, if something happens, someone gets hurt and they try to sue us, you are going to not only pay for the damages, but you're also agreeing to defend me, right? So you're going to pay for my legal fees, and you're going to hold me harmless for those injuries that were caused by the toy, right? And so contracts are important because they shift risk as well to help you to make sure that you're keeping your business protected from unnecessary risks of doing business, right? Next, we have business planning. And so, I feel like this is one that hopefully is somewhat obvious, but when you're talking about starting a business, planning is going to be so important to really just being able to think through, all right, what are the potential challenges that my business might face? What are the potential risks that I might have to address? And then when you think ahead, it gives you that time to be able to address those things ahead of time. So when the challenge does come up, you're already ready to address it, or there are just a few more things that you need to do in order to address those challenges. And then last but not least, got too ahead of myself. Last but not least is building a team of professionals. And I think this piece, as I started at the beginning, was saying one of the biggest challenges for business owners is not knowing what we don't know. Having a team of professionals around you is going to help you fill in the gaps in your own knowledge, right? Because they're professionals in whatever field it is. And so whether it's Akia with marketing, whether it's myself with legal, whether it's someone else who does the accounting and financial aspect of your business, whether you're bringing in someone who can help you with maximizing the efficiency of your operations, having professionals on your team, having professionals surround you is really just going to make you stronger as a business owner in terms of being able to make the right decisions that will help you help lead you to success. And a couple things that I want to say about that, right? Number one, having a professional on your team doesn't necessarily mean you always have that person on retainer. Personally, I started my business with enough money in the business bank account so that I wouldn't have to pay fees. And I was like, I'm just going to bootstrap this thing. And I know that that's the position that a lot of us as self-funded entrepreneurs are in. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, Zane is my lawyer and I've got him on retainer every month, right? Some people need that. Some people want that. Some people can afford that. Some people can't, right? And so it's understanding that it's not just saying, okay, I'm paying this person to meet with them every week or every month, but maybe it's saying, okay, I don't have the funds right now to work with so-and-so or to do whatever, but I know that they offer a consultation in it, and I know that here are some of the things that I might need. So let me schedule a consultation, figure out what I might need in the future. What does it look like to potentially work with them in the future, and start building that into my strategy as a business owner, so that as I grow, I can afford to bring this person on in a more ongoing basis. But it really is just knowing who's the person that I'm going to go to with questions, right? When I need a question answered, who's the person who I can go to, who I can trust, who's knowledgeable, who is going to be able to understand my business and the perspective that I'm coming from, and who's also going to help make me a smarter business owner. Because I think that, from one perspective, it's obviously helpful to have someone do it for you, take it off your hands, save you the time. But you also want someone who's going to explain to you what they're doing and why they're doing it, because you're a CEO now. And as a CEO, you've got to understand every aspect of your business. So you want professionals on your team who are going to help educate you on what they're doing. The other piece too is look at your friends and your family and consider their skills and what they bring to the table as well, in terms of considering them part of your professional team, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they always have the title or that it's something that they went to school with. But you might just have someone, for example, for me, when it comes to sales, my father-in-law, I'll mention him again, I'll give him another shout out. But he's a professional salesman. He's been doing it for 40 years in all different types of industries. And so when I needed help figuring out, how do I, kind of think through what a call with a potential client looks like, and thinking through it from the perspective of a sales call, he was someone that I reached out to and said, hey, I want to, do some hypotheticals, run through some things for you. And a lot of times those folks, family, friends, they're the ones who are going to be most excited to help you because they have a vested interest in seeing you succeed. That really is just based off of the love that they have for you, right? So it's not even necessarily expecting that you'll do something in return. Although there are those friends and family members who do expect something in return, and we know who those are, and so we just know what to expect when we work with them. But remember that your friends and family can bring a lot to the table and can be useful resources for you as well. So that brings us to the end of, basically the information that I brought to kind of present and bring out and share with you all today. So I definitely want to open it up and see what questions we might have, if any.
Thank you so much, Zane. You taught me a lot. You dropped a lot of gems, so thank you. And to ask your questions, feel free to, I'll go ahead and ask you to unmute if you would feel more comfortable speaking. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can just type it into the chat.
Hello.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I wanted to know, what is a good insurance company that you can recommend?
I can't. The thing about insurance, especially when it comes to business, is that it can be so industry specific. So I can't really recommend an insurance company, but I can give you a couple of tips in terms of approaches that, at least for me and my business, I've found helpful for finding insurance. So one is, I think it's always helpful to talk with an insurance agent who is independent of a particular company. And who can offer you policies from different companies. They might not necessarily be able to give you the best deal, but a lot of times, because they're shopping from multiple companies, they'll be able to give you a deal that is either the most affordable, or deals that kind of allow you to weigh different options. And I think too, just so talking with someone who's an independent agent, and sometimes you can just Google someone who's going to be helpful.
Is that like a broker?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also just shopping around. And the other piece that I would say too is, whatever industry you're in, if there are any trade associations or industry specific groups, see if there's someone that you can talk to within that group to figure out where folks typically go for their insurance needs. Because a lot of times, the issues that we're dealing with in our business, others have dealt with already, and have already kind of found solutions to. So if you can, kind of plug in with any of those folks who have kind of already been there and done that, they might be able to give you some good advice on who you want to work with.
Well, I did that part. I actually posted on LinkedIn, anybody know any insurance companies for consulting? And nobody replied. So that's why I was like, let me see if maybe I can get an answer.
If
Yeah.
I can chime in too, I actually worked with a woman. She's based in Texas, but I believe she works online. The
Mhm.
name of her company is Acura Insurance Services.
Oh, okay.
I believe she's independent and she does exactly what Zane says. So, if you were looking for, just to chat with her, you might be able to chat with her, kind of see what she's talking about, get a quote from her. I'm going to drop their hold on. I sent that directly to Zane. I'll drop her website down into the chat so you can kind of click on it and look for yourself, do your own research. But I do know that she's independent and she has connections with like several insurance agencies. So maybe you can start there.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Mm. I have another question if nobody else has one.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess I missed the beginning prior to coming on. So did you mention after you get your LLC and you get your EIN number to open up a separate bank account and apply for business credit, or what did you say about that part?
So
Or did you say anything?
So what I said about that part in relation to business credit is that one of the benefits of opening up a business bank account is going to be establishing a relationship with a financial institution
Mhm.
that will most likely be the first institution to offer you credit. And obviously it's depends on your circumstances and your situation. I don't know if every bank is going to necessarily offer you that right away. A lot of that will, they have their own kind of formulas and things that they go through to determine that. A lot of that is sort of based on what they see within your account in terms of like, cash flow. So, if you open a business bank account and you throw, a bunch of money in that account, right off the bat, there's a higher likelihood that, they'll be willing to offer you some form of credit up front because they see that you've got, collateral
Mhm.
within the account to pay for it. I know for me and my business, it was a year before I got that offer. And so it's, it depends and it varies.
Mhm.
But that relationship again can be a jumping off point for you to being able to access business credit in the short run or the long term, because ultimately the bank is investing when the bank offers you that credit, it's like
Mhm.
they're investing in your business. So they want to see you be successful. They want you to continue to use their products and deposit your money, spend your money with them, right? And so they would rather see you do that than go get credit elsewhere.
I have uh, to anybody else, I don't want to ask too many questions. If somebody else got one, somebody else got one?
I
No?
think it's just you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So what I did is, because I wanted to start writing books, like educational books.
Mhm.
And so I did apply for the business license, my LLC. And then right after I did that, I actually went and applied for American Express. Within the same, I guess, 24 hours, they gave it to me. But my question is, should I have gave them my personal information to get the American Express business credit card, or should I just left it with my LLC without my personal information on there
Um,
to build up the credit? I guess that's what is leading up
so
to
like,
build up the business credit part.
okay, so long term, the goal is to build up business credit then.
Right.
So in that case, you would want the account in the name of the business,
It
because,
is.
okay, yeah,
It is, but I'm just saying, they asked for my personal information. So I was wondering, should I just not have gave them the personal information to get the American Express card and just left it
I'll
in my
chime
business
in.
account.
I'll chime in too. Dan, you can let me know what that looks like on the legal side, but
Mhm.
I'm not a credit expert by any means, but I do use business credit, and I've always kind of had like a knack for numbers. And so essentially when you provided I'm assuming you got your LLC, then you got your EIN. And then
Right.
once you got your EIN, you provided them with that information. So the card is in
Yep.
your business name. So it's going to
Yes.
report to business credit agencies. But when you
Right.
gave them your social security number and your personal information, you made yourself a personal guarantee, which basically says that if your business defaults on this, that you are going to pay this personally. So then the card now also reports to your personal credit bureaus. It reports to personal credit
Oh,
and business credit. So how you use that card, you want to be very strategic about using that card because they're reporting to both. So if you've already had something on your personal credit that could affect your personal credit, that's going to affect both your business credit score and your personal credit score, because you've now made your person a personal guarantee that basically if my business can't pay this, then I will as a person. But Zane, you let me know if I understand that PG connection well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the direction that I was going to head in. And I think the only piece that I would add to it, because I know you were asking, like, should you have done that?
mhm.
Most of the time, they're not going to, unless you've got like a large business with a lot of assets, they're going to want a personal guarantee, so that they
Mm.
know how they would, basically collect on any unpaid debt. And so typically you're not going to have the option to not provide that and still get the offer of the credit that they're putting out there.
So, so in reality, they based it off my personal credit score, not the actual LLC.
Probably. Well, so your LLC was new.
Yes, I did it all within the same, actually in the same day,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. So that's what made me say, because I remember I was on another business training and they said, don't put your personal stuff, your personal information on it. And I totally forgot. And then when they said, oh, you approve, I was like, oh man, I didn't mean, now there's inquiry on my credit report. And I was like, I didn't want that. So I'm wondering, should I do not to say another American Express, like another because that's I was trying to just go for the ones that had the what they call the highest prestige, because they were saying sometimes you have to like go to Office Depot and do some type of business line of credit there to build up your business credit and all that kind of stuff. So I
Mhm.
just went straight for the American Express for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
like I have American Express for my cosmetic business. And so
mhm,
essentially they're going to report to both agencies. So they're taking both into consideration. But yes, you
mhm,
are going to have a hard inquiry on your business, on your
mhm,
personal credit. So if you want to go get a car or a house or another personal credit card, you have to take that into consideration because as you know, like when you first get
right,
the hard inquiry, it is going to hit your credit score
right,
until
mhm,
your credit score recoups from them hitting your credit score. Now,
mhm,
I feel like for me, when I got my American Express, I didn't PG, but I didn't get a personal guarantee, but it comes at like they give you less money because now they're taking on more risk because they can't guarantee that if your debt goes unpaid, what are you going
mhm,
to do? But I also didn't apply with a brand new LLC. I applied with my LLC had already had like some cash flow, in
mhm,
it. So now that I don't know when you started your LLC, but if you've had some cash coming into your bank account, you may find that as you apply for more and more business credit, they may not ask you for a personal guarantee because your business bank account already states, hey, she has the cash flow to accommodate this line of credit that I'm giving to her. Like Zane said, if you were to start off, let's just say, with a business bank account that you threw, $10,000 in, they don't really
mhm.
need a personal guarantee if they're giving you a $5,000 credit limit because
Right,
they
right.
see in
Yeah.
your business account that you have the money to pay them back. So a lot of times when you're a brand new LLC, like Zane said, they're gonna ask for that personal guarantee because they don't know, is this business gonna sink or swim? They don't know, but they want to
Mhm,
make sure they get their money back. So the next time you apply, like what I say is I follow a few people on Instagram that have really helped me. But
mhm,
what I say is you look for net 30 accounts, which
Yeah,
are
yeah,
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 which are basically like, you
yeah,
know, kind of paying an invoice 30 days
yeah,
after you've
yeah.
already placed the order. And then look for businesses that offer EIN only accounts. So I know like Sam's is one of those places. Sam's Club gives out a business credit card. They only ask for your EIN. I believe
Mhm.
Capital One has a card as well,
Exactly.
but they're going to come at smaller limits, right? They're not going to
Mhm.
give you $10,000 at a time. They might only give you 500, 1,000, and then you have to build your credit worthiness with them in order to increase to those higher limits. So, you know, it's all a game of, you know, playing with your
Mhm.
strategy and knowing what to pull
Mhm.
what card when truly. But Zane, if you could shed some light, even for me, about, you know, legally protecting yourself with these credit agencies.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm definitely no credit expert. And I think that, you know, part of it, you know, me being a lawyer, I'm relatively risk averse when it comes to business ownership. You know, so
Mhm.
like I said, I didn't get a, you know, credit card for my business until I was a year in, because for me it was like, I'm just going to take this from a, you know, what's the money that I have on hand? That's how I'm going to kind of operate the business. And then
Mhm.
getting to a place where I actually saw, all right, where can I use the credit to extend what my business is already doing? That was
Right.
the point at which I really kind of focused on, okay, you know, how do I, where do I want to get credit,
Mhm.
and utilize that? And it's, I don't know, for me, it's not something that I think too hard about. And so I know that there are people who know a lot more about the ins and outs of credit than I do,
Mhm.
credit reporting than I do.
Mhm.
But just, it is important, you know, again, understanding like what you are basically what you're signing up for. That I think
Right.
that that's the most important thing that I would come back to is, are you signing a personal guarantee? Understanding what that means in terms of you having to pay back
Mhm.
that loan and reimburse, you know, pay that back, and whatever interest, whatever the case may be. It's not just on your business, it's on you personally. And so like you know, what I was saying earlier is the personal liability protection that you get by being an LLC will not protect you if you have a personal guarantee, right? They will be able to come after you personally to collect, you know, any unpaid debts. And so understanding the two so that you can get the full benefit of that personal liability protection, is definitely essential.
So I guess the whole idea is the next time don't put my personal information on
If you can avoid it.
it, if I can avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I know that Office Depot is a net 30. Do you know any other companies that are net 30? I mean, because I don't mind applying for any of them. Like, like Office Depot, get a pack of ink or something like that to, to do a third, just to build a business line of credit with them.
Mhm.
But she said Sam's Club. I don't like Capital One. But is any other ones out there? I know it's another one called Unity or URL or something. They sell office supplies too, but they're the
Um,
only ones I know of.
I personally, there's a ton of Net 30 accounts. I personally don't use a lot of them because my business
Mhm.
is pretty digital.
Right.
Um, but what I would say is actually go to nav.com and
NAV, NAVE.
NAV. And
Okay.
I believe they help you they have list of net 30s, list of different business cards, credit cards, and they kind of break it down like based off of like what you're looking for. Like are you
Mhm.
looking for a card with high limits, lots of
Mhm.
perks, you know, that type of stuff. How
Mhm.
long has your business been open? What does your business credit score look like? They kind
Mhm.
of walk you through that. But when you set up an account with them, they also help you keep track of your business credit score, which is going to be way different than your FICO or your TransUnion
Right.
or
Right.
your whatever you see on Credit Karma personally. They help you
Mhm.
keep track of that business credit score so that you can see kind of where you're at, but then they'll also give you like personal recommendations like based off of where your credit score is now, the cards that they could recommend to you that you're most likely to get approved for, and then they kind of tell you like, okay, these are the requirements for those cards. I
Mhm.
personally use NAV. I got that from one of the people, like I said, I was following on Instagram that do those credit reporting. I believe they also have a list on there as well of net 30 accounts. But when you think of net 30, think of like office supplies. So I
Yeah.
want to
Mhm.
say
Mhm.
Uline,
Yeah,
off,
Uline, that was the
um,
name. I couldn't think of that name for nothing, Uline, yeah.
I'm trying to think. It might be Staples may have one. You know, think of
Yeah.
typically net 30 is gonna be the stuff that you could like, you know, if you're gonna buy toilet paper in bulk
Mm-hmm.
because you own a building or, you know, paper, ink, gloves, that those type of places tend to offer net 30. And then also just trust the old Google. If you want to just go on Google and say net 30
Yeah.
accounts I can open for my business, you know, that they'll pull some up for you. But you know, when building business credit, like we were saying before, be strategic because you want to protect yourself. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, business credit is important, but Zane brought out so beautifully in the beginning. Not sure, I don't think that, I think you might have missed that part, but he said, you know, start with your end in mind. So you're playing for the long term. It's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. So
Right.
I say get yourself on NAV so you can get yourself organized, get your business credit score kind of, you know, in front of you so you can look at it, and then, you know, decide, is it worth it for me to get a net 30? Should I go get a gas card? Should I go get another like, you know, credit card with like a major credit card lender? Should I get a store card? Should I get a card just for Home Depot? Or should I go get like a Discover, you know? So a NAB I think will really help you with making that decision.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never heard of that one before. So that's good to know. All right then. I think I ran out of my questions.
Well, I do have on the next slide.